What's really good? What's really good? What's really good? Welcome back to the Sanchez Show, man. First and foremost, let me start out by thanking all the supporters. I see you guys in the comment section. We greatly appreciate it. If you don't already, make sure you subscribe to the Sanchez Show, streaming across all major platforms. Make sure you also subscribe to Real Fans Real Talk. As you guys know, I'm normally over there on Mondays or Sundays, depending on what's going on that day of the week. Shout out to my brother Trip Young. I think Trip will be joining us later tonight on the show as well. But tonight, it is the NBA Finals preview show. Going to go live for about an hour leading up to tip-off at 8:30 between the Dallas Mavs and the Boston Celtics. Truly exciting matchup, man, and a little bit bittersweet. It's been a great NBA playoffs. I think the regular season was a little stagnant, but the playoffs have been great. And now we get to this point where we're really only promised 4 more games, hopefully a full 7. But ultimately, I think it's going to be a great series. Shout out to my brother Will Gordon. I know Will Gordon said he's going to tap in at some point tonight as well. So yeah, man, keep the questions in the comments coming in. We're getting into everything. We're answering everything tonight. I'll give you guys a little bit of insight on what I'm going with as far as ticket wise. As you guys know, I love the gamble on the game, so we always got to throw that in there as well and let you guys know what we got on the line. But before we get into the questions, a couple of things I want to break down for this game. Shout out to Ron Charles. He was the first question of the night, so that's the first one we're going to go with. But before we get there, a couple things to keep in mind for this series. It's a truly unique series, some star power. Obviously, there is some franchise star power with the Celtics, who are trying to win their first championship since 2006. And you got these two teams, Boston, who was in the finals 2 years ago, lost in 6 games to Golden State. Dallas, who kind of surprised people as the season went on, a slow start. But after the All-Star break and after they made the trade for Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington, they started to get hot. They started to look like a different team. And going into these playoffs, they were a team that was pretty dangerous because you know how good Luka was. He ended up finishing top 3 in MVP voting. And you knew what Kyrie could do come playoff time. And now we're seeing that from them, and we're seeing the best version of them. But going into this, if Dallas were to win, they would be the 3rd biggest underdog in the last 40 years to win the finals, NBA finals. So that's one thing to keep in mind there. The Celtics, they're the 14th team all time since the merger over the last 40 years to enter the finals with 20 or less wins. Out of the other 13, those teams were 12-1 in the finals. The one exception, obviously, was the Golden State Warriors, the 73-win team who was up 3-1 before Braun and Kyrie had their epic comeback. So there's history on both sides here. Either we're going to see the 3rd largest underdog to win a finals in the Dallas Mavs, or we're going to see the 13th out of 14 team with 20 or less wins who ends up ultimately finishes the job, wins the finals, and kind of cements the fact that they were not only the best team, but probably the most consistent team throughout the season. So a couple of things to keep our eyes on. But let's get to the questions. We're going to start with Ron, and I love the questions that we got right off the bat. So this is going to be a great pregame show. Again, make sure you subscribe to the Sanchez Show. And I know you guys know when we get into football season, we get back going every Friday with the picks. We're going to try to get back in that same momentum now as we're getting a little closer. After the NBA season, it does become a little bit of a downtime, so I'll focus more on Real Fans Real Talk. But I'm going to try to give you guys a little bit more of the Sanchez Show as well. But let's get to Ron's question. News of the day, Lakers are preparing a massive offer for UConn head coach Danny Hurley. Shout out to Danny Hurley. He won back-to-back titles. He's still young. Would you take that big job? Pause. Ron, great question. I would. However, if I'm Danny Hurley, I'm only taking it with the known, I don't even want to say the known assumption, with us knowing that this is going to be probably a 2 to 3 year rebuild, and that I'm not taking this job with the mindset of we have to win right now. Prime example of that, David Blatt, you guys remember, took that job with Cleveland when LeBron went back to Cleveland, and they had some young guys, and they brought in LeBron, and then they made the trade for Kevin Love. And the dynamics of that change, that team and that situation completely changed once you brought LeBron in, and it became we have to win now. And even though they went to the finals, David Blatt was fired after 1 year because he wasn't the right coach for that situation. He never got another shot in the NBA. Had a lot of success over in Europe, never worked out for him after only 1 season in the NBA. If I'm Danny Hurley, I need assurances from the front office, from Jeannie Buss, from Rob Pelinka, that this is going to be a makeover and not a bandage fix where we're trying to win the championship next year. As you guys heard me say before, the smart move for the Lakers is to build around Anthony Davis at this point. And if LeBron is willing to be a part of that at 40 years old, kudos to him. But we cannot, and when I say we, I'm talking from the Lakers. I'm not a Laker fan, but I'm saying from their perspective, we cannot do things just to please LeBron and say, let's go make a quick fix and try to add another all-star and give it another run. If I'm Danny Hurley, you've got to give me the chance to really put my fingerprints on this team and create the identity for this team over the next 2 to 3 seasons and make us into a consistent contender as opposed to a team that's just hoping to make the playoffs and hoping that our veterans can lead us. So you take the job, Danny Hurley, I think you got to have some assurances from that front office. Ron also wants to know, I wonder, is JJ Redick still in the picture for the job? JJ just seems like a LeBron James special. Just seems like a LeBron James special, someone he can run over. I agree with that as well. And that's why I'd never liked JJ for the job. And I really don't like an idea of any coach that LeBron handpicks as the guy who comes in. Again, if you want LeBron to run your organization, fine. But then I don't want to hear complaints when you're the 9th or 10th seed and you're playing games and you have this constant rotation of head coaches. Let's not forget, since Braun has been there in LA, they're going to be on their 4th head coach now. So there has constantly been this carousel of 2 years, new coach, 2 years, new coach, 2 years, new coach. If you're going to go younger, whether it's Danny Hurley or if it's JJ, if you JJ interviews so well that he's got to have the job, then I want it to be somebody that I'm putting my trust and confidence in for the next 3, 4, possibly even 5 years and saying, let's try to build it around this coach's identity and give him a shot to build a contender as opposed to a quick fix. I wouldn't go that direction. If you're asking me, I think Danny Hurley is a better fit than JJ. Danny Hurley is proven. Granted, it's on a college level, but basketball family. Dad was a head coach. Brother's a head coach. He lives, breathes, dies basketball. He's grown up in the gym. I think he will be great at any stop he goes to, whether it's another college job or whether he takes that next step up to the NBA. I just wouldn't take the job unless I had assurances. And I think the same thing goes for JJ Redick. If I'm taking this job, I need some assurances. It can't just be all about what LeBron wants right now. So I don't like that for JJ Redick. And he does come across as kind of a LeBron guy. Shout out to Kyrie Thompson. How petty is it for the Lakers to drop the news on game 1 of the NBA Finals? Shout out to Kyrie. Super petty. Super petty because we've all speculated for a few weeks now that it was probably JJ Redick. The writing was kind of on the wall with the podcast that him and LeBron have together. And the Lakers could have held this news to tomorrow on an off day. The Lakers could have dropped this news yesterday. Again, because it's not official that they have signed Danny Hurley. And it's not official that they were going to sign JJ Redick. But if you were going to go that route, you could have dropped this news yesterday and said, hey, we're in contract negotiations as we speak. And we're hoping to finalize this before the weekend. Instead, they wait to the day of the NBA Finals to steal some headlines. It is a big market move. I'm not saying I'm super upset about it, but it could have been done a little more strategically and with a little more consideration not to take the limelight away from game 1, especially since we've been waiting a week for game 1. Everyone is excited for game 1 because both of those conference finals wrapped up so quick that we had to wait a week now for some meaningful basketball. And so now that we get it, the first 3 questions of the night are about head coaching in LA. I know Tripp is loving it because we're talking about LeBron, and you guys know how I feel about us talking about LeBron so much, especially since LeBron has been sitting home for quite some time now. But it is what it is, right? They stole the headlines again for the first day of the NBA Finals. What are the expectations for Luka on the biggest stage? I think they're large expectations. I know personally, I expect Luka to look like his MVP self. I've made a statement leading up to the Western Conference Finals where I said Luka has gone to war with every team he's ever faced. He's never disappointed in the playoffs. We know he was a 2-time EuroLeague champion and a 2-time MVP over there as a teenager. So this is a young man who obviously understands and grasps the moment and then gives you some of the best basketball you're going to see. So I expect him to perform very, very well. I think the week off helps him just as much as it helps. I know Boston is happy because they get an opportunity to bring Porzingis back, and the talks have been that he is going to play tonight. There hasn't been any talk about minutes restrictions, but we'll see as we get closer to tip-off and obviously the game. But Luka also was dealing with a little bit of a knee and ankle situation early in the Minnesota series, and now that extended break helps him as well. So I expect Luka to be phenomenal. As we talked about gambling, I put a ticket in. I got Luka for 30 tonight. So I think Luka's going to have a great series. Boston is going to have to figure out some matchup things, and I know that's one of the questions. So I'm going to wait till we get to that question before I give you some of the matchups I think are going to be presented to Luka and what he might see on the offensive end. But I think Luka is going to be great in the series, and I think Luka is going to continue to remind us why he is an MVP caliber player, why he's already been a 5-time first-team All-NBA guy. Luka is just, he is one of those pure talents that can figure out anything you throw at him. He can figure out a defense pretty quickly. There aren't many matchups that give him trouble because if you're a quicker guy, most times you're not a big enough defender. If you're a big enough defender, sometimes you're not quick enough to beat him to the spot. And when he starts putting you in pick and rolls, he makes your whole defense have to adjust because he's either going to beat you if you go into drop coverage. If you try to blitz him, he'll make the right pass. And then he's always quick to kick out into those corners for open threes. So I think Luka's going to be great in this series. I have no concerns about Luka at all. Shout out to Rich Drake. Can Tatum afford another finals loss? Wow. So in terms of some of the all-time greats, because now you got me thinking, Rich Drake, I can't think of many who have lost their first 2 finals appearances. You got Jerry West. You got who else? And I'm thinking guards specifically. I'm not talking big men. I'm talking mainly guards. I know LeBron lost his first 2, though a lot of people will say the first one didn't mean as much because they were such large underdogs to the Spurs. But LeBron lost his first 2. Jerry West lost his first 2. Clyde Drexler lost his first 2. That's a couple names that come to mind. So in terms of can he afford a loss, I think you can still be an all-time great. If that's what we're talking about in terms of, and I'm assuming Rich Drake, so correct me if I'm wrong. If we're talking about his ceiling and can he afford another finals loss in terms of legacy, he can. But the legacy does take a major hit because you have to keep in mind, not only would it be 2 finals losses, you also have to wonder how many opportunities are you going to get at the finals. Since Tatum has been in the league, they've been to the Eastern Conference Finals 6 times now. This is their second NBA Finals. Most guys don't get this many opportunities this early in their career. So at some point, if you're Jason Tatum, if you're the star that we think you are, if you are the face of the franchise, you got to find a way to start winning some of these bigger series. We can't just keep giving you a pass and say, well, they made the Eastern Conference. Well, they made the finals. At some point, you got to get over the hump. And so if they don't get over the hump, legacy-wise, I think it takes a big hit. I think he probably, I don't know how many more opportunities he gets. So can he afford? I'm going to give you a hard answer on it. Pause. I'm going to say, no, he can't afford it. He's got to win this one. He can't put himself in a situation where he's 0-2 in the NBA Finals because we just don't know how many more opportunities he's going to get. Shout out to Rich Ray. He's got another one as well that we want to get to. And again, shout out to all the supporters, man. I see questions still coming in. We're going to get into all of these tonight. So don't worry about it, man. We answering everything. And then I got a couple things that I'm going to present to you guys as well. Some scenarios. I want you guys to give me your comments and answers in the comment section. Rich Dre, best way for Celtics to defend Luka and Kyrie. That's where it gets tricky. I think the best way to defend Luka is to try to let Luka become a pure scorer and not a facilitator. If Luka is able to get 25 to 30 points, but still getting 8 rebounds, 8 assists, they become almost unstoppable. Because keep in mind, Gafford, Lively, PJ Washington, Derrick Jones, none of those guys can create their own shot. All those guys feed off of what Luka can do and the attention that Luka brings to himself. So if he is able to score and facilitate, then they become very, very tough to stop. But I think if you force Luka to just be a scorer, and when he has to give it up, then you force those guys to create their shots, that's when you're going to probably have your most success defensively. And Boston can present some of those opportunities. It will be very interesting to see how early they go with Brown or Tatum on Luka. And the reason I say that is because out of fear of getting one of them in foul trouble too early in the game. Because one of the things that Luka is great at is Luka can hunt out fouls. And if he senses, hey, all right, you're going to play me with Brown, I'm going to be aggressive and try to see if I can get 2 quick fouls on him and take him out of a rhythm and take him out of his game. Same thing with Tatum. If you go Drew Holiday, no disrespect, is too small of a defender. Luka's just going to get him down on the elbow, down on the block, and then go to work from there, and he's going to force someone to come over for double team. So those are the 3 most likely matchups. I think Missoula is going to try to go with Holiday early, and then as the game goes on, go with more Brown and Tatum. Again, try to keep them out of foul trouble, try to keep them engaged, and let them get a rhythm offensively before you put them on Luka. I think Kyrie's the opposite. I think Kyrie, you got to blitz Kyrie. You got to blitz him. You got to force the ball out of his hands. You got to make him a facilitator and make their offense reset. So I think you have to treat them a little differently. Kyrie, same thing. Depending on who the defender is, he's going to probably be in attack mode early if you try to put Derek White on him. I don't think you put Brown or Tatum on him until later in the game, maybe when you want a longer defender. But my thinking is, Luka, you force him to be a scorer and you don't allow him to get everybody else involved because you know those other guys really can't create their own shot. They need Luka to set them up offensively. So you take away any rhythm they can gain by saying, Luka, beat us one-on-one. And if you score 45 tonight, then we just got to live with it. Kyrie, on the other hand, I think you blitz Kyrie. I think you blitz him off the pick and roll. You force out his hands quick and you force their offense to reset. And then you take your chances scrambling back on defense that way. Kyrie, I think, is just so crafty. You cannot, especially knowing the importance that Kyrie brings in terms of that secondary scorer and that guy that gives Luka a break. You got to kind of try to keep him out of a rhythm. You don't want to let him get going too early, where then now you got both these guys cooking. Let Luka cook, take Kyrie out the game. That's how I would focus it. Again, shout out to all the supporters, man. Let's see what else we got here. Kyrie, I'm going to bring this question up. I know you just put this one in here. Pause. What has happened to Tim Hardaway Jr.? He used to be like their third option. So technically, he still is. He got hurt earlier this season. When he got hurt, the young kid Green started getting more playing time. And then when they made the trade for PJ Washington, he kind of became like their 3-and-D guy that they trusted. I expect to see Hardaway more. And this goes back to the point I was just making, that they don't have, outside of Luke and Kyrie, they don't have a third guy that can get his own shot. They don't have that. So you need somebody else who you can trust. And Tim Hardaway, I think, is a guy who's proven time and time out. I can create space. I can knock down a three. I can knock down a jumper. I can get to the basket. And I can get you 12 to 15 points off the bench if the two main guys aren't cooking. So I expect Tim Hardaway Jr. to get more minutes in this series. Jason Kidd, who is a savvy head coach, who's been here himself multiple times as a player, he knows how important it is to get a veteran like Tim Hardaway Jr. going. Don't be surprised if you see Tim Hardaway Jr. possibly the first guy off the bench for Dallas tonight. I like him in this series as well to play really well. And that's a great question, Kyrie. This one also, Kyrie McKnight. Shout out to Kyrie McKnight. Kristaps Porzingis, what kind of impact can he have in this series? Man, take a sip of my beverage for that. He can have a major impact. The question is, how healthy is he and how much game shape is he in? And this is why one of the other bets that I like for tonight, you can swing it either way, pause, however you're feeling, but you got Dallas was plus 186 to win the first quarter tonight, and they're also getting 2.5 points first quarter, whichever one you favor. But this is why I like Dallas in the first quarter, because it's going to be very interesting to see what Joe Mazzulla does with Kristaps Porzingis. As I highlighted on Real Fans Real Talk over the weekend, I don't think you can survive this series with having to play just Al Horford and Luke Kornet as your fives. You're going to need more athleticism. You're going to need more impact from the center position against these very active bigs of Dallas. So Porzingis has to have an impact. The question is he healthy enough to make an impact in these first two games, or will he be getting his game leg still under him? I think tonight Mazzulla's going to have trouble figuring out when to play him, when to sub him. And it's a gift and a curse, because if Porzingis comes out tonight and starts out shooting well and is hot, it's going to kind of be fool's gold to make you think, oh, he's good to play 30-plus minutes tonight. And maybe he's not ready to play 30-plus minutes. And on the flip side, if he comes out and struggles, then Mazzulla may be a little gun-shy to go to him. He may be scared to go back to him and think, all right, the guy just doesn't have it, so let me go with the veteran in Al Horford, who's played well for us these playoffs. So Porzingis could be the key to Boston winning this series. Porzingis is the best matchup for Boston in terms of difference in talent, because I think what he can do against the Dallas bigs will be more impactful than what Brown and Tatum can do against the wings. But I don't think he's fully healthy, and I think they're gonna have some trouble. They're gonna have some real trouble figuring out how much minutes to play Porzingis, especially in these first two games. That's where the tricky part's gonna come in for Joe Mazzulla. Is he good enough for 25 minutes? Is he good enough for 30 minutes? What happens if Horford gets in foul trouble early? Because they're gonna put Horford in a lot of pick and roll with Luka. And they're going to force Horford to make a decision. Are you going to switch off? Or are you going to go drop coverage? Because we can always throw that lob to the bigs. We got the slashes and Derrick Jones and PJ Washington. There's a lot of options for Dallas. That's why I've been saying I like Dallas in the series. They're going to attack Al Horford. I promise you guys. And Joe Mazzulla is going to have to make some tough decisions about how many minutes to play Porzingis now. I think by game 3, Porzingis will have more of an impact on the series, but the first 2 games are going to be an indicator if he's even healthy or not. Let's see. Kyrie McKnight. So who is Kyrie and Luka going to guard on the Celtics? Will they get attacked? Yes and yes. They both will get attacked. Kyrie is probably going to get the matchup on Derek White. There aren't too many guys that you can hide on with the Celtics. There aren't too many of those guys. Luka, I think they're going to put Luka on Drew Holiday. And I think Kyrie's going to get the Derek White matchup. And then they're going to let PJ Washington and Derek Jones play against Brown and Tatum, either or. They're going to probably try to put Luka in some pick and roll and then force him to guard in space. They're going to do it with Kyrie as well, but I think they're going to be a little more strategic with Kyrie because they're going to try to get Kyrie on the elbow on a switch. I can see them doing some pick and roll on the elbow, get Kyrie down there against one of the Brown or Tatum, and then kind of let them operate from there. More than likely Tatum, because Tatum is very, very efficient from the elbow in that post-up position. Even though he's not a great post-up offensive player, he can pass out of position, and then he's going to draw attention because, again, it's going to be such a mismatch with Kyrie. But they're going to try to put Kyrie, I think, on Derek White. They're going to put Luka on Holiday. They're going to let Jones and Washington play against Brown and Tatum, and then they're going to try to pick their poison. Sometimes high pick and roll and draw Luka away and force him to guard in space. Kyrie, I think he's going to get pinned down a little bit. They're going to try to get him down there on the elbow with one of those guys and let him operate from there. But it'll also depend on how fluid this offense is for Boston. One of the things I highlighted in the Eastern Conference Finals is that Boston loves to get up and down because it provides them quick offensive opportunities. So I don't think they'll get too caught up in attacking those guys early in the game if they can get their offense going in a fluid way. But if it gets a little stagnant, if it gets a little rigid, I guarantee you they're going to attack both those guys in the half-court matchups. I love this question because Ron, you must have been looking at my notes. This is one of the questions I was going to present to you guys. And I asked all the supporters, again, make sure you are following not only the Sanchez Show, but Real Fans, Real Talk. You guys already know the vibes. But this is one of the questions. So anybody who's tuned in right now, all the supporters, I want to see your answer on this one as well. Game 1, a must-win for Dallas or Boston? For me, it's very simple. It's Boston. Boston has not lost a game 1 yet in these playoffs. Boston hasn't really been challenged in any of these playoffs. Shout out to Justin. Boston hasn't been challenged in any of these games of these playoffs. And for me, we've seen Dallas be tested. Dallas was tested in the OK series. They were tested in the Clipper series. That series was 2-2, and they had to go win a tough game out there. We saw them tested in the Minnesota series. Even though those games were close and it was a 5-game series, all those games were close. Boston really hasn't played meaningful basketball in quite some time. I mean, remember, we thought the Indiana series was over after 2 games. When they played Cleveland, Donovan Mitchell was injured after game 3 when Boston was already up 2-1. They played Miami without their guys, Jimmy and Terry. So for Boston, all the things I highlighted, and think back to what I said, starting out, 14 teams in NBA history have come into the NBA Finals with 20 wins or less. Boston being the 14th team. Of the 13 previous, they're 12-1 in the NBA Finals. The one exception is that Golden State team that lost a 3-1 lead to Cleveland. Other than that, you go into the finals with 20 or less wins, and most times you are the best team in basketball when that happens, and you win. If they lose game 1 at home, it creates a lot of doubt. It creates a lot of, can we do this? Especially if Luka goes off. Because then it becomes, how are we going to guard this guy? And we still haven't figured out if we can even beat this team. Now, to be fair, I am saying that there is more pressure on Boston to win game 1. That does not mean that just because there's pressure on them doesn't mean they can't win the series. I'm a firm believer that game 2 is the most important game in any series. Game 2 is where the adjustments are made. Game 2 is when you really find out if you have a good head coach or not. Game 2 is, to me, what dictates how the rest of the series is going to go. Because whatever you showed in game 1, if you're a good coach, you should be able to adjust to it, shut that down in game 2, and then force that team to go back and figure it out for game 3. So just because I think this is the most important game for Boston, whether they win or lose, I don't think it dictates the actual outcome of the series. I think game 2 is going to be more impactful for both these teams. No matter who wins game 1, game 2 is going to really show us who has the coaching advantage. Right now, I believe Dallas does have the coaching advantage. But after game 2, I think we'll have a much more firm answer on who has the coaching advantage. But with that being said, game one to me is more of a must-win for Boston. They have not had their backs against the wall at any point in the series. They have not been challenged at any point in these playoffs. To me, if they lose game one, it will create doubt. And we will be right back here talking about, is Jason Tatum, can he be the face of your franchise and lead you to a championship? It's why one of the first questions was, what would a finals loss do for Tatum's career? So I think it is much more important for Boston to win tonight. Let's see what else we got. Kyrie, level of confidence in Jaylen Brown this series. I like Jaylen Brown. I got a lot of confidence in him. I think he will have his moments in this series. Again, I think these are tough matchups for him and Tatum. Excuse me, guys. Tough matchup for him and Tatum because PJ Washington and Derrick Jones are long, athletic defenders. So I don't think they'll be able to get to the basket as easily as they were against Indiana. This will be more of them having to be able to make tough contested shots. But overall, I think Jaylen Brown will play well. He is so impactful on both ends of the court that I don't see him just shitting the bed. I think he'll come to play, and I think he'll play well. His ability to get to the rim will really impact how effective he is offensively, because if they turn him just into a jump shooter and a three-point shooter, I think that's where he struggles a little bit. But overall, I got confidence in him. I think he'll play well. We're going to go back to that next one. You got Kyrie as well. Kendrick Perkins says to LeBron, your team is at home. It's not about you. He said LeBron trying to make Kyrie moments about him. Shots fired by Perk. Shout out to Big Perk. I love Big Perk. So look, I don't want to sound like I'm defending Braun, because some of these things he said about Kyrie before, but he did make it about him when he said, I love to see it, but I hate to see it at the same time. And then he went down memory lane. But it's no secret, him and Kyrie have a good relationship now. They've had a good relationship for a few years now. It's no secret that they tried to trade for Kyrie last year when Brooklyn was shopping him. And then the report came out as to what the actual offer was when they tried to make the trade. So I wouldn't say LeBron tried to make it about him. The question on the podcast was really about Kyrie's skill set and what he thought about Kyrie. And he went down memory lane. But, I mean, with that being said, we could say that about any of these athletes who are now in the media and the podcast space, because you go on your Instagram, your Facebook, your X, your TikTok, all these guys are telling stories about teammates they played with and who was their favorite guy to play with, and, kind of just admiring the work of certain guys. So we could say that about anybody. I don't want to make it seem like LeBron only made it about him. All these guys who are in the media space do that. They all go back and forth with guys that they played with at one time. So I wouldn't put too much stock into that. Let's see what else we got. In regards to that previous question, Justin, I'm going to get to your next one as well. Some of the people out here, Justin said tonight, game one, Boston. More pressure on Boston. Rich Dre says Boston. Ron says Dallas. Interesting. Ron, let me know why you think it's Dallas. Because, again, Dallas only has to win one of these games in Boston, whether game one or game two, to take home court. So game one isn't really the pressure game for them. Now, if they lose game one, all the pressure's on Dallas in game two, because you don't want to be down 0-2. But if they can win one of these games, they're in great shape. Boston, on the flip side, I don't think Boston can afford to lose game one and play from that role, knowing that we've already lost home court advantage and now we got to be desperate in game two. But I would like to hear your take on it. Terrence said Boston wins by 8-10 tonight. Very possible. The line right now, if you're a gambling man, Terrence, the line right now is Boston -6.5. That's the last I saw. I think that number's a little high, but I get it. Again, Boston has been record-wise the best team, and in terms of consistency throughout the year, they were the most consistent team. So anybody who likes Boston, I get it. I get it. Two All-Stars. In terms of talent, they probably have more talent than Dallas as well. We know Dallas is top-heavy with Luka and with Kyrie, but Boston with Brown, Tatum, Holiday, Holiday, Derek White, Al Horford is still a very serviceable big. Porzingis coming back. They're a good team. That's why they had the best record in basketball this year. They're a very good team. So I wouldn't doubt it if they can win tonight, and I wouldn't be surprised if it is a 10-point win. Boston is very good at home, one of the most efficient shooting the ball. One of the things that scares me a little bit about Boston is they do give up a lot of three-point opportunities. It's the reason why Miami was able to steal game two in Boston. It's the reason why Cleveland was able to steal game two in Boston. So if you can shoot the three ball against their defense, it gives you a chance to beat them. And even going back to 2 years ago, it's one of the reasons why Golden State was able to beat them. Golden State was able to take advantage of shooting the three ball against them. So there's opportunity there. But if Boston wins tonight, I wouldn't be surprised. I personally said this is at least a 6-game series, if not a 7-game series. So nothing would surprise me tonight if Boston. Only thing that would surprise me if it's a blowout, because both these teams have had at least a week to prepare. So unless it's a blowout tonight, that's the only way that I would be shocked if it's a blowout. But anything short of a blowout, if Dallas would have win, I wouldn't run around and say, I told you so. If Boston would win, I wouldn't run around and say, oh, man, I was so wrong about it. I think this is at least a 6-game series, guys, at least going 6. So if somebody's got to win game 1, I wouldn't be shocked either way. Terrence, this is a great question. And I don't know. Shout out to Terrence on this one. Justin, I'm going to get back to your other 2 questions. I like those as well. But this one kind of correlates to what we were just talking about with confidence in Jaylen Brown. This goes back to something we talked about on Monday's live. Shout out to Trip Young, Real Fans, Real Talk. What if Boston wins? Brown wins MVP, but Tatum averages 28 a game. Will media and fans kill Tatum? They will, because this is the society of sports that we live in. This is the space within media that we live in, but they shouldn't. If Tatum is averaging 28, if Tatum is putting up numbers similar to what he did against the Pacers, and this was one of the debates, again, we had on Monday, I don't see how you could be mad at Tatum, because he can only do his job. He can only perform. If those that vote on the MVP don't select him, you can't hang your head and be like, oh, I didn't play well. If he averages 28 and he plays well, but those voting say, hey, we like Brown's performance better, there's nothing to hang your head on. And I use that example from 2016 when Kyrie went crazy against Golden State. And in my opinion, I thought Kyrie should have been MVP. And I know everyone will say, oh, Bron was amazing. Bron led all players in the major statistical categories. Fine and dandy. But Kyrie's performance at the end of that series is what saved and won that series for Cleveland. LeBron was putting up them numbers in the first 4 games of that series, and they weren't winning. It was Kyrie's performance in the last 3 games, along with Kyrie's shot, that to me, we always remember about that series. Now, I'm not mad that LeBron won MVP, but my personal preference was that Kyrie should have got it. A couple years ago in the bubble, I said the same thing. I thought Anthony Davis was more impactful and more of the reason why the Lakers won in the bubble. He didn't win MVP. Tatum could be the same thing. We could sit back and 2 weeks from now say, man, Tatum was amazing in the series, but for whatever reason, Brown wins. People will kill him no matter what. If you don't like his game, you're going to kill him. If you have a preference of player, you're going to kill him. But I think if Tatum averages 28, there's not much else he can do. If Tatum averages 28 and plays really well in the series and still doesn't win Finals MVP, there isn't much more he can do. And I think the fans should kind of take a step back and realize, like, hey, man, the guy played well in the playoffs and he just didn't get Finals MVP. And the same could be said. What if Tatum averages 35, let's say hypothetically, and they lose in the finals? Are we going to kill him then? Or are we going to say he still didn't do enough? Like, the guy can only do what he can do. And I think he played well in the Eastern Conference Finals. I think there's a lot of heat on him because people are still looking back at how he played 2 years ago in the finals, and they don't want to recognize what he's done since then. But he's played well so far in these playoffs. I expect him to play well, and all he can do is just hope that it lines up for him to win MVP if the Boston Celtics win the finals. Great question, Terrence. Again, guys, make sure you subscribe to the Sanchez Show, streaming across all major platforms. We're about almost 30 minutes away from tip-off. Make sure you guys subscribe to Real Fans, Real Talk. We go live normally every Sunday, but I know sometimes we do Mondays depending on what's going on Sundays, if there's a game on, if there's some other things going on that we got to address. So if you don't see us on Sunday, you see us on Monday, but more importantly, just make sure you subscribe so that way you can just stay in the loop and you'll get in touch with everything that we got going on, and you'll know this week, because game 2 is on Sunday at 8 p.m., it's very possible we may start the live at 7 and do pregame of game 2. If not, I'll do a pregame, and then Trip Young and myself will give you the recap on Monday. We'll figure that out. Stay in tune. Make sure you are following me across all social media platforms. As you can see right there, Legend in 2 Games on everything: Facebook, X, Instagram. Follow me. You can send in your questions and comments there. Any ideas you want to hear discussed on the show, because we're going to get into that down period now within sports. You know, unfortunately, after this, all we got is baseball. So we ain't going to have a lot to talk about. Yeah, I know we have some Olympic basketball and stuff like that, summer basketball and things like that to talk about. We have WNBA, of course. But send in your questions, your comments. We get into all that stuff, man. So make sure you subscribe to both podcasts, The Sanchez Show and Real Fans Real Talk. Again, shout out to my brother Trip Young. Shout out to my main man, Will Gordon. I know we will be getting back together for the Friday night lives as we get into football season. So if you guys like to gamble, if you got that FanDuel account, you got that DraftKings account, you're going to want to be tapped into the Friday night live because we give you a lot of winners. We pick the games. Shout out, I'm saying, to my man, Vernon Brownlee, the counselor, because he joins us as well and gives his sports betting expertise on games you should be picking, player props. We get into all that. Let's get back into this, though, man. Again, we are 25 minutes now from tip-off. Let me know what you guys are rolling with tonight, who you like, what you expect to see. Let me know what you're sipping on. We got some tequila in the cup. We getting right for the game tonight. All right, let's go. Justin, shout out to Justin. I didn't forget your questions. I told you I got you. Eric, I was just sitting here watching all the pregame stuff and thinking this NBA Finals is a great matchup. Both teams healthy and have star players on both sides. I don't miss the Curry Bronze right now. Hey, I agree with you, man. I said, Justin, I know you've been one of the great supporters of everything we do. And we've talked about that, the passing of the baton. We talked about, the young guys taking over. And I like the space that the NBA is in right now. And that's why I like this matchup so much, because they're both still young teams, right? We forget how young Boston is because they've been in the playoffs so often, but both young teams, Boston in their second finals in 3 years, Dallas, super young team, aside from Kyrie and Tim Hardaway Jr. I don't think anybody else on that team is over 30, but you got Jason Kidd, first time as a head coach in the finals. This is fourth time overall because he went 3 times as a player. You got Joe Mazzulla in his first NBA Finals. He was there as an assistant coach, but this first time as the head coach. So I think it's great opportunity, but I also think it's great star power. You got Brown, Tatum on one side. You got Kyrie and Luka on the other side. You have the history of the Celtics. You have, though not as storied a history with Dallas, but listen, since Mark Cuban has taken over ownership there with the Mavs have been a perennial contender. And this is the third time under Mark Cuban that they've been to the finals. So they've been one of those constant teams that we see. And now this is that newer rendition of them because the 2 times previously were the Dirk era. Now this is the Luka era. We got Luka, who was a top 3 MVP finalist. We got Tatum, who's first team all NBA. So there are some great storylines, some great matchups. Obviously, Kyrie against his former team, Porzingis against his former team. Justin Holiday going for his, Drew Holiday going for his second NBA championship. And him leaving Milwaukee out the way that, he gets traded out of there and now ends up on a Boston team that he's trying to help win a championship. Their first, and what are we talking, 17 years, 18 years now? So I think it's some great storylines. And I agree with you. The Curry-Braun rivalry was amazing. I think that's something that we'll always reflect back on. And one of them stories that 20 years from now, we'll say, man, remember them 4 years, man, that they just kept meeting in the finals. And then not to mention, they had some battles in a playing game. They had a playoff matchup. So they've had some great battles. But I think it is great to see this transition now where the league is headed and to possibly see, I know a lot of people commented on, could Tatum be the face of the league? If he wins this finals, obviously that becomes a new conversation. Could he be the face? Is Luka the best player in the league? That's a conversation that some people are starting to have now because, again, 5 first-team All-NBAs already. NBA Finals now. Western Conference, obviously MVP, all the things that he's done at a young age. So the league is in a great place. And I agree with you. I love to see it. Both teams completely healthy now that Porzingis is back. The week off is going to help Luka as well because he was dealing with that knee and ankle. It's going to be a great matchup, man. I think this is going to be a great, great matchup. This is one of those that maybe we didn't expect before the playoffs started, but it's going to be a phenomenal matchup when it plays out. Like I said, we're going to get some great basketball over the next week and a half, 2 weeks. Justin also wants to know, I worry if the Mavs role players would do well, the Liveleys and the Gaffers. It's a great question. This goes back to Porzingis' health. I think if Porzingis is healthy, and we're gonna know early, we're gonna know very early in this game how healthy Porzingis is. Right? If Porzingis is healthy, he's going to limit some of the things they do because he is the best athletic big that Boston has to offer. But if he's limited, I think these guys will feast on the boards. I think that it's a tough challenge to ask Al Horford to keep up with Lively and Gafford's activity, the way they're able to get up and down the court, the way they are on the boards, how dangerous they are on that pick and roll. That Luka can throw that lob anywhere near the rim, and those guys can go get it and finish. And on the flip side, their activity defensively. This is like Gafford. I liked him when he was with the Wiz. I liked the move for Dallas. But at the time, Derek Lively was still kind of like in that rookie phase figuring it out. So you didn't know how it was going to work. And Jason Kidd has found the perfect mix of minutes for both of them where they're able to just go full force and give you everything they got for 20 minutes, 25 minutes if that's what he needs, because they know, hey, I'm not going to play the whole game. I got reinforcements coming off the bench that can, spell me for 6 to 8 minutes and let me recharge to come back in. But their activity on both ends, you see Gafford's impact, blocking shots, rebounding, just causing havoc around the rim on both sides. Same thing with Derek Lively. That's why, I made that comment about Brown earlier. I don't think Brown's going to get to the paint and to the rim as easily as he did against the Pacers. And so you need Porzingis to be healthy. So I worry about it too. I worry more, not even about these two guys, though. If we're going to say role players, I worry more about Derrick Jones because Derrick Jones got to knock down that corner three. In order for Boston to respect him, we talked earlier about who Luka and Kyrie is going to match up on. On the flip side, like I said, I think there's going to be opportunities for Boston to hide Tatum and Brown. And they may hide him on PJ Washington if he's not shooting well. They may hide him on Derrick Jones if he's not shooting well. Those are the guys that I would be more worried about. Those guys, I think, have to be very active, have to be slashers, have to impact the game in other ways. Because if they're not knocking down that corner three, then it becomes a lot easier to focus on Luka and Kyrie. But if those guys are slashers, if they're able to knock down smoke with shots, then it really opens up the court for the lobs, for the dribble penetration into the paint and the floaters. So those would probably be the two role plays I worry a little bit more about, not Derek Lively and Gafford, man. Great questions, guys. We're approaching tip-off. Anything else you guys got, make sure you put it in the comment section. Again, make sure you are subscribed to the Sanchez Show and Real Fans, Real Talk. Let me see what else we got. Shout out to Hoop Baller Scoop. I saw him post a comment up in regards to Gino Ariama's comments about Caitlin Clark. We'll get into that real quick. I don't agree with Gino. He made the comment that players are targeting Caitlin Clark. I don't agree with that. As I've said before, this is all part of the rookie process. You got to figure it out. You got to toughen up. Are the fouls going to be a little harder? Absolutely. But that's what happens when, the competitive nature of players kicks in and you've been labeled as the best thing since sliced bread and you've been labeled as the savior of the league and all those things. And Caitlin Clark is going to have to take the bumps and bruises just like any other rookie would and any other rookie has taken. And she'll be better for it. I think she'll be fine. But, I don't like this idea that now we're making it out like she's a victim. She's not a victim. She's a ball player. She plays ball. And anybody who's played any type of sports, whether basketball, football, baseball, there's some part of rookie initiation, right? If you're a rookie football player, and let's say you're a rookie wide receiver, you probably know every time you come across the middle, you're taking a big hit. If you're a running back, the tackle's going to be a little rougher. If you're a quarterback, everybody is trying to get to you and sack you. You know that. If you're a baseball player, you're probably going to see more inside fastballs than the average player would. That's just part of the game. What you do after that is what's going to make you special. I think Caitlin Clark is still a very special talent. I think some people were expecting more. I said from jump, I thought her rookie season, 15-5-5 was going to be a stat line. She's at 17-5-6 right now. And I know some people will say, oh, well, that's not enough for number one pick. Well, listen, her team had the number one pick back-to-back years. The Indiana Fever weren't a good team before her. Just because they added her wasn't going to make them a good team. Just like we see in the NBA a lot of times, the league is top-heavy. We know what the Aces are. We know what the Liberty are. We know what the Connecticut Storm are. There are a lot of good teams. And she's struggling. But guess what? A lot of the rookies are. Andrew Reese, numbers aren't great, right? That's part of the rookie hazing. Cardozo just hit the court a couple of weeks ago. A lot of these rookies are struggling, and they're going to struggle very early in the season. But I think it's unfortunate for Gino to put that out there in the air as if she's being targeted. That's unfair. Um, 15 minutes from tip off. A couple other things I want to get into for game one. As I mentioned, I like Dallas in 6. That's my prediction for this series. Going back and forth on that prediction and thinking about how this series could play out, as I mentioned, Boston is the better team, I think, top to bottom. If you broke down the rosters and went top to bottom and said, hey, who do you like more? You probably would like Boston's roster more. What makes me lean towards Dallas is they have the best player in the series, which is Luka. If you list the players top to bottom, I think they got 2 of the top 3 players in this series, Luka and Kyrie. I think Luka, Tatum, and Kyrie are the best 3 players in that order. Then after that, it's all Boston. It's Brown, it's Holiday, Porzingis if he's healthy. Then you'll probably throw a Mav in there. But the roster-wise, I think it's Boston. But I like 2 of the top 3 players in the series are Dallas Mavs. But Jason Kidd, to me, is the reason why I'm leaning more towards the Mavs. Because I can't forget that Joe Mazzulla really struggled last year and really was undressed by Eric Spoelstra in that Eastern Conference Finals. And has he learned his lessons? We'll see. Is he better from it? We'll see. But I think Jason Kidd has been better from his previous stops and has learned a lot about his team and has really simplified the game of basketball for the Mavs. And I think that's why we have been a little shocked by the way they've beaten some of these teams, right? They were the underdogs against Oklahoma City. They win that series in 6. They were the underdogs against the Timberwolves. They win that series in 5. And a lot of it has to do with just Jason Kidd really making it very simple and kind of going with a strategy of spacing the floor, putting Luka at the top, pick and roll, where it's making it very difficult for you to double him. And when Minnesota tried to start doubling him, he started to pick him apart almost like a great quarterback. They try to blitz him as soon as he come across half court and he would get the ball right to the foul line. And then you played a mismatch game from there. Early in the series, they try to do drop coverage and Luka just continued to kill them from there. And I just think, though it hasn't been like a masterful coaching job, I don't think Jason Kidd has like reinvented the wheel or reinvented basketball coaches. I just think that he simplified it in a way that it's like, it almost reminds me, it really almost reminds me of that 2016, not to compare because they're not same type players, but Kyrie, LeBron in 2016, when they couldn't figure out how to beat the Warriors, Ty Lue simplified it and said, look, every possession is running through Bron or Kyrie. Whether it's pick and roll, whether it's ISO, whether it's on the wing, whatever it is going to run through those 2 guys. And from there, we're going to take our chances because if you leave them one-on-one, we probably could win that matchup. If you double them, they're smart enough to make the right pass, which then gives us the numbers on the back end after we beat that blitz that you're sending at us. And that's really what Dallas has done. Dallas has basically said, if you leave us one-on-one, we love the matchup for Luka or Kyrie. And if you blitz them, these guys are smart enough to get the ball out quick and then play the numbers game to get a corner 3 or get a slasher or get the lob at the rim. And for me, I want to see how Joe Mazzulla can adjust to that. Because can he live long enough with playing one-on-one against Luka? As I mentioned, I think that's what they're going to have to do. I personally think they're going to play one-on-one on Luka and turn him into a scorer. But if Luka's really lighting him up, can Mazzulla have the balls? Can he be gutsy enough to say, I'll live with that? I just don't want these other guys beaten. Or will he panic and say, we got to get the ball out of Luka's hands? And then not only have you allowed Luka to become comfortable as a scorer, now you're going to turn him into a playmaker. And that's where I think the trouble comes in. So I think Jason Kidd has coached really, really well. That to me is why I'm leaning towards him, because when you got the best player in the series and you have the best coach, most times you win the matchup. And that's why I think Dallas wins in 6. Again, I would love to hear from anybody who has Boston winning. I get it. There are a lot of great points to be made why Boston will win this series. I think the proof has been in the pudding all year. Best team during the season. So why wouldn't you trust them for one more series? But this is the one series they don't have the best player in. And this is why there was so much made about their path to the finals. It's not their fault they were number 1 seed. Nobody can question that. Nobody could say, oh, Boston's number 1 seed, so that means nothing. No, it's not their fault. That's why you become the number 1 seed. You want to create the easiest path possible. And that's what they did. But in doing so, it becomes a gift and a curse. They played a Miami team that was missing Jimmy Butler and Terry Rozier. They played a Cleveland team that was missing Jared Allen, and then after Game 3, they didn't have Donovan Mitchell. They played an Indiana Pacers team who probably would not have gotten out the second round if the Knicks were healthy. But aside from that, Tyrese Halliburton gets hurt in the second game, and then they're without their best player. So now they're in a situation where they no longer have the best player. In all those other series, they had the best player, even if healthy, right? Because Tatum was better than Donovan Mitchell. Tatum was better than Halliburton. Tatum is better than Jimmy Butler. I think so. So they had the best player in all those series anyway. But now they don't. And now they lose that aspect. They also don't have the better coach. Joe Mazzulla, he's better than Bickerstaff. He's not better than Spoelstra, but Spoelstra was so handicapped with the injuries that you can only play who you can play. This is what we got. But he's better than Bickerstaff, who lost his job, unfortunately, a couple weeks ago. Joe Mazzulla's probably better than Rick Carlisle. I'm not the biggest Rick Carlisle fan. Probably, I would say it's an even matchup. But in all those situations, Tatum was the best player on the court. And in most of those situations, Brown was the second best player on the court. And now I don't think they have that aspect, and they don't have the better coach. It's going to be a great series, guys. I got Dallas in 6. I got that. Like I said, and from the gambling aspect, I like Dallas to cover the 6.5 tonight. Even if you don't like them to win, you could take the points. I like them to come out of the first quarter. If you like the outright, last time I saw it was plus 186. I took the 2.5 points because I do think that it's going to be a very competitive first quarter. A couple of things, like I said, I'm paying attention to. How will Joe Mazzulla play Kristaps Porzingis in the first half of this game? Will he allow him to get out there and play? Will he keep him on a short leash and try to preserve some of his legs for the second half? And when he's out there, it will be very interesting to see how they run their offense, because there's a guy who hasn't played with them in a while. So do you force feed him some shots? Do you try to get him in a groove early, in a rhythm early? Or do you force him to kind of play the background and say, hey, you're going to have to fall in line, because Derek White played really, really well for us throughout these playoffs. We want to get him his shots early. Of course, we want to get Tatum and Brown their shots early. So that'll be interesting to see. And like I mentioned, the foul trouble. Will they allow Brown and Tatum to guard Luka early? Because if they pick up cheapies, if they pick up little ticky-tack fouls, that changes a lot of the coaching dynamic for Joe Mazzulla if he's got to sit Brown or Tatum for an extended period of time. Those are some of the things I'm paying attention to tonight. Like I said, as far as the gambling aspect, I love Dallas first quarter tonight, plus 2.5, but you could take them to win the quarter as well. A little more money on the return there. I like Luka to at least have 30 tonight, and I think he might even give you a 35 piece tonight, but I like him to play well. And what else we like tonight? I like Gafford, 10 plus rebounds tonight. I like Horford, at least 1-3. Couple things I like. I like Tatum, 25 points. I like Kyrie, 20 points. What else we got? I like Holiday, 2 steals tonight. So there's a couple things I like tonight. Do with it as you wish, man. We'll see how that all plays out. Again, we are set for tip-off in a few minutes. I want to thank you guys for rocking with me tonight. Game 1, NBA Finals pregame with the Sanchez Show. We will be back Sunday. And again, follow me on social media. Make sure you subscribe to the Sanchez Show. Make sure you subscribe to Real Fans Real Talk. Make sure you're following Trip Young as well on all social media accounts. We will keep you guys posted on whether we will go live with Real Fans Real Talk on Sunday. If not, we'll do it Monday, and I'll do the pregame show on Sunday to get us right, man. So with that being said, I am Eric Sanchez, a.k.a. Legend of Two Games. You have been rocking with the Sanchez Show. I'll see you guys on Sunday, man. We out of here. Enjoy game 1.